So, John, according to an online quiz that I did this morning, I have got a perfectly balanced brain. So, I figure then it must be L&D trial time.
Here we go. Yes, it's L&D on trial time. Each month we look at an area of learning which has come under heavy criticism for good reason. Often, usually it's a lack of research, scientific rigor. Sometimes it's just an idea that's frankly quite old and has persisted for one reason or another. One of us will defend, one of us will prosecute. What is next in the doc? Well, today we've got left and right brain thinking. So, Jo.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting one. And from my point of view, it's really easy. Is the myth is not true, it doesn't exist, end of story. But in the essence of playing the game, we should explore this a little bit more. And I do like the fact that you always seem to get the part where you're defending these awful myths. What was it you said earlier on? You were like somebody off of QI, like Alan Davis.
I'm the whipping boy. I'm the fall guy for these jokes. Yeah, like Alan Davis in QI. That's how I feel anyway. So like so many times we do this, I feel that it's kind of indefensible, but I will give it a go. Well, I'm not even going to give it a go, but I'm just going to provide a bit of background and set myself up for the fall, really.
Okay, you do that.
Okay. So we're talking about left and right brain thinking. The general idea, you're welcome to rebut my definition here, but the idea is that some people think, for one reason or another, that the brain, some behaviors are specific to sides of the brain. So, or if you can be a left brain or right brain type of person. If you're left brained, you're very creative. If you're right brained, you're very methodical.
I think it's usually the other way around, but either way.
I had a 50-50 chance of getting it right, and I got it wrong. Okay, so if you're left brained, you're quite methodical and very organized and scientific, and if you're right brained, you're very creative and a lot more free flowing in your in your idea generation. Perhaps.
I think you've just proved that you're right brained and actually you're right all the time.
So the right brain left brain theory originated in the work of Roger W. Sperry, who was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1981 for shame. But basically it was so I think it came about in the 60s, but it wasn't until the 80s that he got awarded the Nobel Prize. But hopefully it was for achievements in something else.
It was around the split brain stuff, but what he was finding was it was about how different parts of the brain were working when you cut the corpus callosum, which is basically the bit in the brain that joins the two halves of the walnut, if you like. They discovered about the communication in the brain and how it responded differently. But what they didn't say was you have a dominant behaviour if you're left and right brained. So he was probably very right to win the Nobel Prize. Is what other people have done with that information afterwards. That's sorry to interrupt, John, but that just to tidy that important little fact up.
Well, yeah, I mean it was based on his studies of epilepsy, and like you said, he discovered that cutting the corpus callosum could reduce or eliminate seizures. So other work that's been done has given pretty strong evidence to the. Let's take it back to the start. So the brain does have two halves, two hemispheres. So if we talk about the lateralization of brain function, so this is the tendency for neural functions or cognitive processes to be more dominant in one side or the other, in one hemisphere or the other. So the hemispheres of the brain are plain to see. So this is why, if you're going to kind of reduce the complex matter of the brain down to simple sides, it's clearly an obvious way to do it. The next passage is, full disclosure, from Wikipedia. I didn't go beyond page 1 of Google because I didn't think there was much point, because every single link was about destroying the theories of left and right brain thinking. But so it says, although the macrostructure of the two hemispheres appears to be almost identical, the neuronal networks have a different composition, which allows for different functions. So, for example, the best established example of lateralization in the brain is that of Broca, Pierre Paul Broca, who's a French anatomist, and Karl Wernicke, who's a German physician. their areas of the brain which are linked to language skills are both found in the left side of the brain, but the functional what's the word? So the functional expression of those two areas happens across both sides of the brain. So even though they may originate in one part of the brain, the essential thing here, which is the problem, which people kind of ignore when they talk about left and right brain thinking, is they then involve other sides of the brain and other areas of the brain to express these functions. So even if there's one specific area, it never. I'm disproving my own points here, but
you're doing my job for me, John.
Yeah, I mean, things such as semantics, intonation, accentuation, they've all been found to have a neuronal basis across both hemispheres, and that's what people struggle to admit. But the worst thing about it, sorry, Joe, you won't take long to destroy me, and I'm moving my camera around. But
making lots of noise.
Yeah, the worst thing about it is that it seems like it's everywhere. Like the amount of companies that base their whole strategy, and they'll sell presentations into bigger organizations saying, oh, we've studied the brain, and this is left and right brain thinking, and this is the way we can maximize this for people that are more specialized in one area. It's pretty scary.
It is. And actually, there's some research had been done in 2012 by Decker Lee, Howard Jones, and I don't know how to pronounce the last name, Joles, Jolles. And they found that 91% of teachers surveyed in the UK believe the left brain, right brain theory. And like you say, the trouble is, these are the people who are developing and designing teaching lessons for our kids and going and then perpetuating that for them and basing this off of something that isn't scientifically proven. And then the issues then become, I was reading this, actually this kind of links back a little bit to learning styles. It's that same issue. I always thought I was a very visual learner, so that's a very one way to go and process stuff. So therefore, well, do I take notes? Do I listen to something? Do I go and type my notes? And the trouble is that it can affect the way you think. So if somebody's been told you're right brain, you're creative, you're not very good at maths, well, then maybe I'll skip my homework because I'm not good at it, and therefore it becomes self-perpetuating. And that therein is where the problem is, rather than actually, as he says, well, yeah, there are different things that work more in one hemisphere than the other, such as language skills, as you said. But a really good quote that I've got here from Jeff Anderson. So he's from the University of Utah. And what they did is they scanned brains of more than 1,000 people ages 7 to 29. No evidence that the participants had a stronger left or right side brain network. And this is the quote from him. He says it's absolutely true that some brain functions occur on one or the other side of the brain. Language tends to be on the left, attention more on the right. The neuroscience community has never accepted the idea of left dominant or right dominant personality types. Lesion studies don't support it, and the truth is that it would be highly inefficient for one half of the brain to be consistently more active than the other. So this kind of probably goes back, as you say, years and years and years, back to the 1800s, where people were learning through injury, such as one side of the brain had a loss to specific abilities. What we now know about is neuroplasticity. So, okay, you might have a problem with some of the functioning. I've got a friend of mine who's had a brain tumour removed, had something like six operations to do that, and has a problem generating testosterone now, so is now on steroids to do that. A lot of his other thinking and cognitive capacity is still intact because the brain is really plastic, i.e. malleable and changeable. It can update according to if one bit is a bit injured, other parts of the brain can take over, and all sorts of different parts of the brain are involved in processing all sorts of different things. So yeah, it's a bit of an obvious one of it doesn't exist, end of story. I don't think we need to labour the point too much on this one, do we, John?
No, I guess not. But I mean, the only thing I could say is that people have taken this idea of areas of the brain that focus on different skills and applied them wrongly, like you said, to general personality types, which unfortunately isn't true. There we go. Okay.
That's it.
1-0 to you.
Thank you.